Bollocks! 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 Hi, welcome to all our chums out there to Toyah and Robert's alternative universe, sited within our kitchen with a pile of useless answers ready to serve up to only a few of our very many burning questions from you.
I've just realised our bedding that's been washed is hanging on the GNU. I would have removed it, but I've been out all day and I forgot.
Well, I have deliberately actually left it there because we have had some inquiries. Do you ever use your GNU?
Our GNU is overworked.
Well, yes, I mean, this is our kitchen, that's our laundry. Well, come on, of course. This is a working kitchen with working players here.
Okay, our first question, Christian Murphy. My poor acoustic guitar only has 3 strings and it's B string. What's the most interesting way I can tune these remaining strings until the new ones arrive?
All right, well, Christian says he has it's only the first 3 strings and the B string. Christian, I think you mean you have the bottom 3 strings and your B strings. This is my tuning, you understand? So I would suggest, if that is so, you might consider E, B and E. So you have a that was an F. Bollocks, that's a B. There we are, that's your E chord. With your B string here, you can accompany yourself with power chords, and on your B string you can be playing the solo.
Okay, and if Christian was to go really into heavy kind of grunge power, what if he lowered the low E to D? Or do I mean up to D?
No, well, for me it would be down. No, it would be down, lovey.
Okay, so that it went D, A, D, and then he had the B string. That's really grungy.
Yeah, he could.
It depends what kind of music you like. And I know this is your acoustic guitar, but I've just learnt this week about lowering the E string to D and just having those really deep, grungy chords, which I adore. I think somewhere deep inside of me, I'm a bit of a metaler.
Well, what you don't hear at home is what I hear my little lovey practicing in her office. My wife is rocking out.
I know that what I play on guitar does not resemble what I write musically. So I'm going to explore that avenue and see what happens. Have you finished answering that question?
Yes.
Jeremy Richards, do you think you're both better at dealing with challenging and difficult times and situations than when you were younger?
What do you say, Susan?
I'm definitely better at dealing with stuff now. Age brings wisdom and experience. And I think once you've had experience and you realise you can survive things that seem they're going to end the world, and you come out the other end so many times, if you're our age, Robert's about to turn 75, I'm about to turn 63, our wisdom makes us realise that if we have shelter over our heads, food and water, we are going to cope. That said, if someone broke into the home and burgled us, you'd have to peel me off the ceiling. But I think with the majority of events, we deal better now than when we were younger.
Well, yes, as we get older, hopefully we acquire discrimination and experience and a set of principles which guide our life. So for that, yes, let's hear it for age. On the other hand, when I was younger, for example, in 1968, when Decca sent us their first standard contract, I stayed up all night writing out by hand, exactly reversing all the presumptions of the record company and artist. So when you read it the other way around, everything the record company would do for the artist, it was laughable. And today, I probably don't have the resilience to spend over 6.5 years fighting dishonest management, which I did in 91 to 97.
Now, the difference between you doing that and me doing that, because we were both in the situation as a result of dishonest management, is your career maintained. If I took 6 years off as a woman to fight that law case, I'd have no career now. So I had to cut loose and just keep going. And I find that really interesting. And the 90s was terribly hard for us. It was a decade of fighting for our rights. And I'd say we're much happier now. Would you say that?
Yes.
Can I move on to the next
Yes,
question?
dear.
Carly, in what main ways do you think your careers and lives would be different if you had both been born opposite sexes? Well, that's led into that beautifully. I'd be so much more fulfilled. I hate to say it, but biologically, I found being female very, very difficult. My body has been very uncomfortable to live in. I think if I was a foot taller and looked like a supermodel, I might have enjoyed myself a bit more. But I happen to work in an industry where being, how can I put this, not knowing the age group that is listening, being shaggable, I might have had a better career, and I'm very short and very tomboyish. I think if I was a bloke, I would have been more emotionally independent, happier. I would have been more fulfilled, and I would not have had to deal with so many aspects of my physicality being judged by other people, as I have had being a woman. How about you?
Well, my answer's shorter. If I'd been an aspirational guitarist moving to London as a woman in 1967, you would never have heard of me.
That's really tough. Now, I want to say something. In another question, I'm going to jump to this book, and we don't advertise, but this book is by a musician, Sarah Pinsker, and I'm going to tell you about her in a few minutes because she's on her 4th album, and that's her first book, and it's absolutely breathtaking. And I think it shows today that women are arriving stronger in this industry as independent musicians, not just as women. So have you answered that question?
Yes, dear.
Okay. Luke Tangway, where do the unicorns go during the week? Iceland.
They move back to the hall, but that's only their appearance. My belief is that they slip through wormholes and equilibrate the energies of the planet.
It's true. They've got work to do. They don't stay here. Mudjo7, musically, what do you enjoy most and least about practicing, whether individually or in an ensemble? I love practicing with someone else. I love someone else's timing influencing my timing, and also pointing out that my timing might be off. Playing with others just makes you learn more about yourself. So I absolutely love that. I don't like distraction, and I love it when I have a spare hour in the day where I can go and practice without distraction. So I just love the opportunity to practice alone and with someone in a busy working day.
Well, I enjoy both. When I'm practicing on my own, it's something like guitar yoga. Centering, finding a quiet, still point within around which there is movement. So I love practicing. Practicing with others, like practicing in Crimson, it's stunning because there are 7, maybe 8 musicians at the moment, and you're playing notes and suddenly music enters. And then a stage beyond that, I experienced King Crimson entering the musicians. And at that point, when we have a band, King Crimson is in the room, the music takes on a life of its own. So I enjoy both in different ways.
If my husband can't practice for the hours he requires each day, and let's say at least 4, preferably 6, it breaks him. He has to practice. It's part of his physicality. And if he can't put that in his body, it actually destroys Robert Fripp. He has to practice. It calms him down. It's part of who and what he is, and makes him feel in control of his life. With me, because a lot of my day is taken up with business and a hell of a lot is taken up with press, I practice in my head. So if I can't get to the guitar, I'm actually running the exercises in my head, naming the frets, naming the notes on the frets, shaping the exercises, because I know if I'm putting it in my head through to my fingers, the synapses are working, and when I pick the guitar up again, I will be better at doing those exercises. So that's one to remember. If you're on the bus or on the train or on an aeroplane, you can actually run your exercises in your head, and it makes a difference. Keith Keller, what do you do about mass ignorance on social media? Well, here's the genius with that one.
Well, hardly, dear, but first of all, discrimination. Secondly, I might add I don't live on social media. I get my news from a variety of sources. We each of us probably, or perhaps, have trusted gatekeepers, for example, journalists or writers or commentators. Some musicians and artists have remarkable power of insight. I keep an open mind, but primarily I consult my own experience. So if I'm being presented with some news and this is entirely contrary to my experience, then to that I can say, bollocks.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's false news out there. Obviously there's people who enjoy attention by being negative. I tend to not absorb social media, but I'm obviously very passionate about what I put out. The only thing I really dislike is people imitating me, and surprisingly there are a few imitators out there, and the reason I dislike that is I feel incredibly responsible towards people who trust me and trust my opinion and trust my life choices. So I'm a bit of a fighter if someone impersonates me or makes others feel that they have first-hand information from me. I'm very protective of that. Otherwise, I really don't take much notice of social media, in that if it's spiteful or it's being negative, then that ain't going to influence me. I make my own mind up. Mark Foxton, what would King Crimson have been like if Brian Ferry had been the lead singer after he auditioned for the part and was successful? What a brilliant question.
King Crimson would have had better haircuts, been better dressed and a lot more successful. Now I shall tell you the story of when Brian Ferry auditioned for King Crimson in 1970. I am one of two people who have heard Brian Ferry sing in the Court of the Crimson King and Schizoid Man. The other is Peter Simfield. And Brian clearly had something. He was going to succeed, but not as a King Crimson singer. And we recorded our auditions, and for many years I teased Brian that one day I would play Brian's Ferry version of Schizoid Man and In the Court of the Crimson King. This was only a tease, however, because actually we didn't record Brian.
If Brian was in King Crimson, there'd be more women in the audience, that's for definite. I think it would have been more accessible. Brian has phenomenal timing. I think he could have done it. I think he would have tested you, because Robert isn't terribly fond of singers. And I think it would be like David Sylvian made you accessible. When you work with David Sylvian, it was a fantastic pairing of Robert's musicality and David's musicality and David's voice. In fact, that would have been really possible. You'd have liked David Sylvian, wouldn't you, to have sung with King Crimson?
Yes, there were discussions in the early 1990s about that. David originally agreed and then gave it further thought and realised this wasn't for him.
He realised it wouldn't be fun.
It would have been a chuckle all the way, sweetie.
That I first met Brian Ferry when he knocked on our front door where we lived in Salisbury. Robert was away on tour and I was trying on a stage costume that happened to be a black leotard and long black thigh boots. And this was a Sunday afternoon and I opened the door to Brian Ferry and you should have seen his face. He just looked at me and he said, "Is Robert home?" And I went, "No, he's on tour. And before you think of anything, I am actually alone. I'm just trying out a costume." And I invited him and his wife in and we had tea together. He was absolutely gorgeous. We had the same management, and I now bump into him on the festival circuit. He is such a fantastic guy. Peter Stewart, how do you see the future of music going in, say, 10 years' time?
Music will be fine. Music is always fine. My concern is the industry. The industry at the moment is working out new obscure ways of changing regulations, putting clauses in contracts to siphon a little more money out of the stream coming to artists.
The most blatantly stupid clauses. If you are an artist about to sign anything, look for blatantly stupid clauses because they're starting to be added as a standard in contracts. Anything else you want to say?
Music gives me hope. The music industry generates despair.
Okay, now, the author, Chris Lim, who used to run my fan club, sent me a book this week, which was meant for my birthday in a month's time. And he said, I can't keep this book any longer, you've got to read it. It's by Sarah Pinsker. Sarah is a musician. She's made 4 albums, and this is her first book, A Song for a New Day, written 2 years ago. I read paragraphs of this book to Robert at lunchtime today, of conversations within the book about being in lockdown, stadiums, clubs, bars being closed, and how the hourly worker cannot survive in lockdown. How when a friend has an illness, that the character in this book scrubbed the apartment and scrubbed the sinks and the taps in case it was a virus. This was written 2 years ago. And the phenomenal thing about this book is Sarah predicts, and this is a novel, this is not fact, but Sarah Pinsker predicts that music will become virtual. We will all be forced to buy subscriptions for headsets that allow us to enter a musical arena and experience music live through virtual reality. It's a phenomenal book, and if you love reading novels, wow, get that, because you just go, no, I don't believe this. This is exactly what has happened in the last 12 months. It's phenomenal. And thank you, Chris Lim, for thinking of me by sending that book. Ian Haydock, do you dream in colour?
Well, funnily enough, last night when I was asleep dreaming, this question came up. And colours began appearing in the dream. I'm not, how can I put it? Colour doesn't often focus strongly in my dreams, but it's not black and white, it's not monochrome dreaming. But I do remember one very, very powerful coloured dream in 1976 when I saw an ocean with a particular quality of blue. All I saw was this blue ocean. It was breathtaking.
I remember a dream when I was about 14 where a beautiful, tall silver man came and took me out of my body. We left through my bedroom window and we went to a nebula gas cloud somewhere in the galaxy. And he showed me these orbs, these beautiful coloured orbs that were moving through each other, and they made notes as they passed through each other. And that's the first time I experienced the colour cerise. Oh, it was just breathtaking, and it was so vivid. I do dream in colour, but very occasionally, like 4 times in 63 years, do I have really cosmic dreams, and you never forget them. MV, which song would you have liked to have written by yourself?
If you mean, is this such a wonderful song you yourself would have liked to have written it? Well, none at all. Similarly, I envy everyone nothing. However, if I were told you must have written one particular song, it would be Blue by Joni Mitchell, which when I heard it in 1971, when King Crimson were recording Islands, when I heard that song, I thought, I have nothing to add to this.
David Bowie's Lady Grinning Soul. It's virtually impossible to sing. It's such a clever song. Off Aladdin's Sane, I absolutely love it. There have been songs I've had to persuade my co-writer to finish with me, and one is Dance in the Hurricane off In the Court of the Crimson Queen. For 2 years he did not believe me that this little 4-bar section we had that later became the chorus of Hurricane was a hit, and I kept badgering and I said, Simon, trust me, these 4 bars are a hit. And eventually we finished the song off and it became the opening track of In the Court of the Crimson Queen. Mark Davis, can we do something by the Rolling Stones? Yes.
The only question is when, and not today.
Okay, I've performed live in stage shows, Paint It Black and Sympathy for the Devil. I can't wait to perform them again. So yes, 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 yes. Jose Manuel, please play Lark's Tongues in Aspic.
Some lark's tongues in aspic. Well, you know, there's 5 lark's tongues in aspic. Lark's tongues 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So the opening chord. Let's say this is a magic chord. The opening chord of Lark's tongues in aspic Part 2. Bollocks. Well, that's that one.
And how about some more? Because we want to hear the bollocks more than the music.
The information has come back to me that the most popular aspects of my guitar playing are the mistakes I make. Well, I mean, this isn't fair. Now, as my dear wife was saying earlier, if I don't have my practice time in a day, I can be a grumpy boy. Well, actually, what happens is I don't quite find my centre. So, if I were going to play this, for example, bollocks! 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 You see, I need 2 hours to get ready for that.
Well, what was wrong with that?
Just about everything, dear. However, if you'd like, if our chums out there would like to go and look at Toyah and Robert's Sunday lunch, you will see Lark's Tongues in Aspic Part 4 with my wife banging me around with a is it red handbag, dear?
Probably.
Or is it the...
Can you say banging you around in USA?
I'm sure it will translate it. It might have been the one where you were signalling.
Yes. So ladies and gentlemen, wonderful to talk to you. Stay safe. We'll see you tomorrow for a really brilliant Sunday lunch. I am from Birmingham in the UK, and the band we're performing tomorrow is a Birmingham band, and we've been meaning to do this for such a long time. It's a great song. It was a worldwide hit, and it's going to be fun, 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 and no bollocks whatsoever. Lots of love from Toyah.
And from Robert, please be well and stay safe.